In American society, money is a taboo topic. We're taught at a young age it's improper to talk about it, but we're also bombarded with messages about the power and importance of money in our everyday lives. And by not talking about it, we miss out on the skills and lessons we need to effectively understand and financially plan. That changes today. Welcome to Money Tales. Hosted by Sandy Brager and Cami Doder, Money Tales brings more than 35 years of combined professional experience in personal finance to demystify money and demonstrate what it's like to speak openly about personal financial matters. Join us each episode as they interview modern-day movers and shakers about how money decisions intertwine with their daily lives in order to give you better insight into productive financial conversations. Subscribe today and register for our blog Fathom at aspiriant.com/podcasts to increase your money mojo. And now, here's Cami and Sandy.
This episode is all about the will and drive of a young Latina to rebel against cultural norms and prove to herself and the world that by playing by her own rules, she can accomplish whatever she puts her mind to. Lisa Morales-Hellebo is our guest this week on Money Tales. Lisa grew up as a member of the only brown family in an affluent neighborhood, facing relentless racism that put a chip on her shoulder and sparked an unyielding determination. Now, Lisa is using that drive to take on Refashioning, the $100 trillion global industrial value chain. Let me tell you more about Lisa. She spent over 25 years in tech, design and systems thinking, entrepreneurship, and community building. Today, she is founder and co-managing general partner at REFASHIOND Ventures, the Industrial Transformation Fund. Refashioned Ventures invests in early-stage companies refashioning end-to-end value chains to be better for people, planet, and profits across data and AI, advanced materials, advanced manufacturing, and next-gen logistics.
Here are 3 key money topics Lisa hits on in this conversation. First, how brilliance and innovation are equally distributed while opportunity and access are not. Lisa and her business partner are using their venture capital fund to deploy capital into areas and technology that will transform how 99% of the world lives. Second, how building something from nothing is really hard. As a VC, Lisa seeks out founders who have grit and persistence deeply rooted from their childhood because she knows from her own experience that helps develop the hunger to succeed. And third, how her husband's bike accident caused them to experience the challenges of the U.S. medical and insurance systems, including the frightening awareness that even if you're doing everything right, one unexpected event could trigger financial peril. We hope you share this episode with a friend, and please subscribe to Money Tales on your favorite podcast platform. Now on to our conversation with Lisa Morales-Hellebo.
Welcome to the Money Tales podcast. I'm Cami Doder.
And I'm Sandy Brager. Cami, I was on a call with a client earlier today, and we had an important money conversation. The client wants to purchase a new horse for their daughter. The daughter is an equestrian, and she's gotten to a point where she has outgrown her current horse physically, skill level wise as well, and they need to replace the horse. So it was a big money conversation, and it was an important one because the client wanted to make sure they're being careful. Horses are expensive. Not only are they looking to buy a new horse, but they want to sell the existing horse. There's all sorts of buy or lease situations that are possible here. Because they already have a horse, they have a barn where they keep the horse at. So they have all the housing covered. A big question when they're doing this trading, because this isn't the first time that they've done it, but a big question is, what do we do about veterinary insurance? The medical insurance for the horse, is it really important to have? And we've always, thus far with the client, decided, yep, let's get it for all new horse purchases because we just don't know exactly what we have. There is history on the horse, but let your daughter ride it. Let's see. And then the clients can decide later if they want to self-insure. It was just a really exciting conversation. The clients are always a little hesitant. There are big dollars involved when it comes to these horses. And the need for the new horse is coming before there is a plan for the existing horse. So there will be some doubling up of horses. for some period of time. And they just want to make sure that they were being thoughtful, that they had the financial resources in place in order to make this whole transition work. And they wanted to make sure that they were supporting their daughter and her equestrian dreams in a manner that was prudent.
It's so interesting, lease versus buy. I'm always surprised the different areas where this comes up.
The last time we talked about this, it was in regards to camping gear. Horses, you can lease them. Another thing that came up with a different client who owns a horse is, where on the balance sheet do you put the horse? I thought, well, you put it on the asset side. It's valuable. You can sell it.
Sounds like a liability.
And the client was like, no, it's a liability. There's a lot of care and feeding that happens. So a lot of fun money conversations when it comes to horses.
That is super interesting. I get the pleasure of pivoting to our Money Tales guest today, Lisa Morales-Hellebo. It's really a treat to be talking with you on Money Tales.
Thank you for having me. So nice to be here.
Lisa, would you introduce yourself and share a couple pivotal moments that have taken place in your life that really impacted who you are today?
I come from pig farmers and seamstresses living mostly below the poverty line in Puerto Rico. My grandmother was a seamstress in the South Bronx. My mom taught me how to sew growing up so that we could have clothes. My dad was the only one that could afford to buy clothes in a store. For me, money always seemed like a tool. And what I learned later on in life is that it's a power construct. I only applied to Carnegie Mellon. I told my parents that I wanted to do something creative that made money because I was always voted the most artistic, most creative. So I was only applying to Carnegie Mellon. And thank God my parents were like, ay, Lisita, por favor, we can't afford this. And I said, nope, that's where I'm going. Got in on scholarships and grants and graduated with honors. Thank God. I knew that I needed to go to a proper university that would give me credentials and access to networks that my people have never had access to. And I can't believe that little 16-year-old Lisa actually had the foresight. Maybe it was just that I was always so stubborn and really determined. And I remember very early on, I would maybe 5 years old, get mad at my mom. Why does dad not have to clean the house and cook? So I've always been a little activist. I can do whatever I want. How dare you tell me I can't? I think having Carnegie Mellon as a credential opened a lot of doors. And one of my early goals in life was to be making over six figures by the time I was 25. And I did that. I turned 51 in November. So way back then, making six figures was like, oh my God, a major milestone. Today, it seems like everyone right out of college makes six figures. Later in my career, one of the reasons I became a VC is that I had worked in Silicon Valley. I built tech companies from the ground up. I quadrupled revenue. I pioneered building things that had never existed before for other companies. And so when I went to build my own tech company, got into Techstars and raised a little bit of venture capital, I realized that there was this whole universe of business and opportunity and innovation that wasn't being even looked at because it just didn't appeal to the people that had the money, white guys in Silicon Valley. And that was fashion and fashion technology. I had built a contextual search engine in fashion. And after Techstars, I ended up closing down that company because VCs were trying to invest around $4 million and told me to my face they wanted to throw my IP in the trash and turn me into the next celebrity female founder talking about style once a week because I was so pretty. And basically that sounded like the worst thing ever to me. I'm like, I created contextual search engine, a new form of search that has never existed before. And all you can see is fashion on the interface. So that's all you can equate it to. So I ended up shutting down that company rather than taking the money and working in a company that I would hate. And at that moment, I realized that is my calling. It is my purpose on this planet to refashion the entire end-to-end value chain that impacts brown women around this planet. We are extracted and exploited. The industry's race to the bottom falls squarely on brown women's shoulders mostly, and factory owners. So I saw this $3 trillion global industry that was not being funded properly, that white male VCs didn't care about or understand, I thought for the first time in my life, I have not only an unfair opportunity, but I have a chip on my shoulders the size of my ancestors. That's when I realized, how dare I not try to do all the things, become the Elon Musk, if you will, of the refashioning of industrial value chains. And my area of expertise and focus happens to be around fashion.
Tell us a little bit more. Pig farmers and seamstresses. So great. Did you grow up in Puerto Rico? Where'd you grow up?
I'm a Puerto Rican from the Bronx, where they keep all of us that aren't on the island. My parents were both in Puerto Rico, so they're both from the island. And my dad is from Mayagüez, very light-skinned Puerto Rican. My mom is from San Juan, more Afro-Latina and Taíno, the native to the island. So I tell everyone I am a trifecta. I am Afro-Latina and Taíno. I'm native, I'm African, I'm Latina. I have all the chips on my shoulder of my ancestors, but I was born in the Bronx. And my parents moved us out of the city when I was 3.5 up to Westchester, which is a very affluent suburb of New York City. But my dad was a teacher in the South Bronx. And then he became a principal. My mom was a homemaker. And when they bought their house, they had $20 left in their bank account on their $16,000 house that they bought in the 70s to get us out of the Bronx and give us access to better opportunities. So I've always seen that there's this layer between worlds that keep people divided in this really insane way, because everyone, brilliance and innovation is equally distributed, but opportunity and access is not. And I got a lesson in that really early on in my life when my parents moved us up to Westchester, because we were the only brown family in Westchester for all of the 70s and 80s and a good portion of the 90s. And so we happened to move in 2 doors down from a neo-Nazi family. And they were putting severed bloody deer heads in our driveway, writing awful things in the snow, shooting at our cats, beating their children if they said hello to us. So I was berated almost every day of my life, on top of going to school, a private Catholic school my parents were so proud of sending me to. Young Catholic kids on the school bus would spit on me on the bus because they'd say, "What are you? Why are you so brown? Are you dirty? We'll give you a shower." So this was my earliest memories. And no wonder I have a freaking chip on my shoulder. I didn't realize until I was almost 40 years old. I called my mom one night at Techstars, this really tough global tech incubator, crying because I was exhausted. I was away from my babies, my husband. Every VC was telling me that they didn't get what I was building because it wasn't in, I don't know, Twitter for cats.
Didn't fit a box.
Yeah. So I called my mom one night at Techstars crying, and she said the same thing she said to me every day that I would come home from school crying, whatever. She said, "Lisita, you deserve to walk into any room and have your voice heard. Just hold your head high and prove your worth." And when she said those last 3 words to me, it's like a knife gutted me. And all this stuff came pouring out, and I had no idea what was going on. I was having a panic attack. I had suppressed everything from my childhood.
Dealing with all those memories.
Yeah. And I realized in that moment, every decision in my life to be better than was trying to prove that I have worth.
That's exhausting.
Hard enough being a woman, let alone that weight on your shoulders. I've turned it into my fuel. It's my superpower. Go ahead and underestimate me. You have no idea what I'm capable of.
I love that, Lisa. And I'm curious, if we go back to the young girl who's growing up in Westchester with all this adversity in her front yard, on her school bus, in her face, with a supportive mother who's helping push you up and talking to you about showing your worth. What were the money messages you were taking away at that time?
We didn't really ever talk about money. And I didn't think of us as being poor. I just knew that all my friends could buy designer jeans, Jordache jeans. There was a summer when everyone had them and we did not. Whatever the it fashion item was, it was always about that fashion or travel. All the other kids would be going on ski vacations and to the Bahamas and wherever with their family. And We would hike the mountain that was down the street for our vacation. I never felt we were lacking. I didn't really realize until I was going away to college that we had a huge garden in our yard because we needed food. I had to learn how to sew because we needed clothes. I helped my dad remodel the house. All of us kids did. I learned how to knock down walls. I learned how to sew Cabbage Patch dolls because we couldn't afford to buy them. So my mom sewed them and I learned how to sew and made clothes from. I didn't realize that other people didn't have that. And I think it's a blessing to not be born with everything at your feet because it makes you hungry. And that's one of the things I look for in founders now with my fund. You need to have grit. You need to have a chip on your shoulder. And it usually is tied to something from your childhood, deep rooted drive, because building something from nothing is really freaking hard. And if you're just doing it for a paycheck, you're probably going to give up. I've never really had any issues making money. After going to Carnegie Mellon, I knew that I could work anywhere and create value anywhere I went. And I always was really successful in every career and move I made. I would quadruple revenue, scale a retail chain from 19 stores to 29 in 7 months off the revenue I was driving, building a whole new division. Everywhere I went, it was a repeat of the stories, but it also was a glass ceiling of CEOs saying, thanks for making us a fortune. We're going to make you beg for your 10% bonus. No, you're not. I'm out of here. I know that I'm worth a lot. So I always would move if I saw that somebody else was putting a barrier in front of me. That's your barrier. That's not mine. I have infinite potential. I'm going to go elsewhere where it's valued. I haven't worked for someone else for, God, since my youngest was born in 2005.
Tell us more about this goal. By 25, you're going to be making six figures. Why? What was it going to do for you? How'd you even come up with it?
I realized in college, we didn't have a lot.
Was that the awakening for you? The money awakening was college?
Yeah, the first day in college, the girls on my floor in the dorm, there was one that was from Palo Alto, and she literally had nothing but designer labels. And she opened her closet to everyone and said, I'm going to be shopping when I go home. I'm bored with all this. Take what you want. I was like, what? Who lives like this? And then I had another friend that was from Miami and she took her family boat to school every day. I'm like, what? People live such different worlds than I was born in. It made me want to prove that I could do anything and that any goal I set I could achieve. And so for me, six figures by 25 just seemed like a really nice round number and something that I don't know that my dad had achieved until much, much later in life. And so I was the first in my family to go to a proper big university. I have a lot to prove. I need to not only pay off some of the student loans, I got scholarships and grants, but still had a little bit of debt. And I need to prove that anyone can do anything. This is my opportunity. You got to take that shot.
Lisa, tell us about what was happening within the dynamics of your family as you were becoming financially successful and outpacing your parents, and especially your father, because you mentioned some of the gender differences growing up.
It wasn't ever a discussion really about money. They were proud of me and I was very generous because they provided for me and I loved giving back. And I was always buying expensive presents for everyone at Christmas. But the discussion always came back more to culture. Lisa, aren't you going to get married? Who's going to take care of your babies? I'm like, well, if I'm married, I'll have a husband. I'm not in it alone. It always came more back to culture and the cultural norms and expectations of being Latina. I said, that was yours. This is mine. I'm going to choose what defines my opportunities, life experience. And my parents' world, I felt, was very small because they wanted to create safety and opportunity. And they gave us so much, but they gave me such a bigger platform and a world to explore. So I just had to keep reminding them, thank you. You've given me a bigger life than you could have ever dreamed of. Now watch what I can do.
Your parents gave through sacrifice, and you're giving through hard work. And you have these goals that you have big things you want to prove. What does that feel like when you get there, when you prove it?
I'm still working on that. I'm never going to get there. There is always moving further away because I will always have something to prove. I have so many people to bring up behind me. Just me getting there isn't enough. So after Techstars, I realized, wait, I could start another company and just be another brown woman with her hand out that nobody even sees as having any value or potential in this whole massive sector. Or I can make my ancestors proud and try to build a fund and be on the other side of the table and deploy capital into all the people that nobody is seeing as having value and worth. And I see diversity, equity, and inclusion as being not a checkbox, folks. It's not gender, it's not color. It's the lens that you've experienced the world through. And that is powerful. So we have an unfair advantage to invest in people that have different lenses that all the traditional funds in Silicon Valley aren't even seeing as having value. Whereas 99% of the world need technologies that Silicon Valley isn't frankly addressing. Things that will impact workforce, emerging markets. My partner in the fund, Brian, is from Ghana, and he grew up in a village of chicken and goat farmers in the countryside. His family lives on $1 a day. He hasn't lived at home since he was 12 because he knew that education was an opportunity to get out. And so he has a career in finance. And when we met, it was like, you're my brother from another mother. We just get each other so viscerally. We both have a chip on our shoulder and see this massive opportunity to deploy capital into areas that will impact the 99% of the world. And how capital can be a vehicle for transformation. We literally are called REFASHIOND Ventures. I love the word refashioned. It's an entire paradigm shift. And that's what we're investing in. Refashioned Ventures is the industrial transformation fund. And we invest in pre-seed and seed stage companies that are refashioning industrial value chains to be better for people, planet, and profits across data and AI, advanced materials, advanced manufacturing, and next-gen logistics and supply chains. And that is an end-to-end value chain. So we invest holistically into the technologies that will provide the outcomes that we all know we need, and holistically investing so 1 + 1 is greater than the sum of its parts. We have a different kind of fund structure. I think I've seen all sides of the, pardon my French, but shit show that is early stage venture. I didn't want to just replicate the existing paradigm because that's what's expected. So I told Brian, listen, from my perspective, if we're going to be investing in industrial transformation, we need 3 things: community, capital, and a separate set of catalysts that exist to accelerate the integration, adoption, and scale of our portfolio companies. And now we have all 3. And believe you me, everyone that we have met along the way has said, no, 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 you're doing things all wrong. You need to just have a fund, just deploy capital. This other stuff is a distraction. I'm like, no, that's our unfair advantage. We started with community in 2017. We now have 40,000 plus first degree connections of the top builders and buyers of industrial transformation technologies around the globe. It gives us inbound deal flow from 148 countries. And then we started with a rolling fund because, again, I don't like to sit around waiting for people to see my value. So the rolling fund vehicle with the SEC that AngelList developed is perfect for emerging fund managers. We have this community. We can talk about it. I mean, talk about power constructs. You got to raise a fund, but you can't talk about it. I'm sorry, but not everyone has a country club that they go to and can whisper to their friends with trust funds. This AngelList thing, we can raise from any accredited investor. We have a network of tens of thousands of them. We can publicly solicit. Every quarter is a fund, so we can start deploying capital quickly. As soon as a check comes in, we can start deploying. Let's do that because I believe momentum creates momentum. And so just start proving what we can do and the types of deals we could get into. We've been deploying capital since September of 2021, and we now have 55 portfolio companies with 8 reinvestments, and our portfolio is killing it. So I'm really, really proud.
Lisa, congratulations on the success. It really sounds like you guys have refashioned many, many things up and down the organization and how you're doing the work. I'm curious about the fundraising that you do and the money conversations that come up. I'm going to guess your investors are not a typical VC investor.
We've been in probably every VC fund, emerging manager, accelerator, and cohort, and have been written up and on the top emerging fund managers, top 50 lists, and all the things. Show me the money. There's a vast divide between people recognizing that you really know what you're doing and unlocking the capital. I thought building a fund can't be harder than building a company. Well, I've learned a lot. At least when you build a company, you have a product that somebody needs that you can sell. Building a fund, you're just selling trust and yourself. And nobody knows you. The only people that are going to put money into you for a true institutional fund one are high net worth individuals that can cut a big check, a couple $1 million as an anchor, or angels, family offices. Every family office thinks that they're now going to be killing it in early stage venture. What we've learned in talking to a ton of funds, we actually have a whole white paper on how family offices can partner with emerging fund managers rather than try to replicate it, because it is hard. The diligence, the deep expertise, especially if you're going to start to invest in things like hardware, materials, supply chain, these really complex industries. As a family office, people saw that it was really hot and everyone started investing into logistics and freight. And then I think it was last year, there was this massive freight investment implosion, and all these freight tech companies were dissolving and going through recaps. You can't dabble. If you're in supply chain, you need to eat, sleep, and breathe it every day. You have to be obsessive, because today, supply chains, we're in the primordial soup stage. If you're not in it daily, you don't know what you're investing in because it's being built and defined today. It looks nothing like what it was yesterday.
You're this confident person having money conversations every day, whether it's with your investors, the firms you're funding. Describe how your money conversations go at home with your husband.
I'll share a very personal thing. My husband just had a severe biking accident last Friday on his 50th birthday. And he's a biker. He usually bikes 300 miles a week. And of course, on his 50th birthday, he has a severe biking accident and he needed to be hospitalized. He had hip surgery. He has a plate and 5 bolts in his hip now, and he had a brain bleed. He's home now and he's on medicine and he's recovering. It's going to be a long haul. But even if you do everything right in this country, you got to be on top of every little thing. We learned that the hospital takes our insurance, but apparently the surgeon that did his surgery does not. And we didn't find out until after we got the bills. I swear, this country, I think, is so ass backwards. My husband's Norwegian, and I lived in Norway for 3 years. And yes, the taxes are high, but the standard of living across the board is exceptional. In America, we have to get our shit together, because even if you're doing everything right, one wrong move and you could go bankrupt. It's frightening. One of the reasons I'm doing what I do is because I want to create generational wealth, not only for my family and my 2 boys, but for these other founders. Our portfolio is mostly evenly split between female and male founders. And the majority of our portfolio, actually only 30%, I believe, are white. And that's not by design. We aren't actively trying to invest just in brown people and women. It's because that's our network. And because like attracts like. And that's the secret of Silicon Valley. Everyone thinks we need to reform how capital's deployed. It's nefarious and they're trying to be jerks. No, there's a word for it. It's called homophily. Like attracts like. And so we have an unfair advantage because all of the people of color and women that are building this world-changing place reach out to us. We don't have to hunt them. And so we have massively unique deal flow. Talking about money at home, it's been stressful. When I told my husband I was going to go from being the primary breadwinner to building a tech startup for the first time and making $0 for an indefinite period of time, God bless my husband. He gets me, and we've been married now for 21 years. He said, okay, we'll figure it out.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, those high stake money conversations are important. It sounds like you guys navigated it well.
The most important partner you could pick in life is your life partner. And my husband, God bless him, he just gets me that this is what I need. This is who I am to my core. I need to constantly be building and creating and learning and building ecosystems. And he's like, yeah, you're going to change the world. And I'm just glad to be a support character.
It sounds like you're already doing that. You're a woman on a mission and definitely goal driven. Tell us, what is your next money conversation going to be and who's it going to be with?
It's probably going to be with our insurance company and the hospital, but I feel like all I do is raise money, but we're doing it again our way. I don't like having to knock on every door. When I first was building my first tech company, every VC said, oh, you just have to pitch 1,000 VCs. That seems like a huge waste of time. How do I find the people that actually see me, understand what I'm building, care about it, and actually might write me a check at the stage that I'm at? How do I create that opportunity? I know I create value wherever I go. I don't know if you have any guess how much it costs the average factory in the United States of 50 employees to do their required annual compliance reporting. That number is staggering. For a small business of 50 people, the average is $26,000 per employee every year. What a great opportunity for AI to do our homework for us. Instead of all the fun creative stuff, we're using AI to take the pain away from factory owners to unlock their working capital so they could reinvest them into the technologies that our portfolio has invested in. The way that I talk about money is I create value and then create events to attract the people that see the value in what we're creating. We're creating an event called the Industrial Transformation of Fashion, because that's my area of focus and expertise. And I've curated founders from around the globe, Luxembourg, Spain, across the UK, Singapore, and across the United States that were flying in for this one-day event to see the future-ready value chain and how we would piece it together, and then the technology that ROS is building to unlock the capital so factories actually don't have to sit around and wait for brands to see that they should invest in their manufacturing partners. They don't have to sit around and wait for regulation or government money to support them. They can unlock the capital and support themselves. That is massive value creation, and we're excited to be presenting in front of people that see that value.
Lisa, you are having some very important personal and professional money conversations. Wish you continued success on all those. Would you share with our listeners, where is the best place for them to find you?
My fund is REFASHIOND Ventures, but of course we had to spell it a little funky, a little weird. It's just the word refashion with the letter D.com. There's no ED at the end, refashioned.com. That links to the Worldwide Supply Chain Federation, our community. It links to our events, and it links to Refashioned OS, our operating company. So you could keep tabs on everything that we're up to at Refashioned.
Lisa, thank you for joining us and sharing this amazing story and your passion to keep proving the next challenge that you got it. So keep it up. It's amazing. Thanks for joining us on Money Tales.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Money Tales podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think would benefit from listening, and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your ratings and reviews help more people find our podcast. If you're inspired to gain clarity and peace of mind about financial matters, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Aspiriant. go to Aspiriant.com/start a dialogue. Or you can email Sandy and me at podcast@Aspiriant.com. See you next time.